All right, good morning. We wanted to welcome everyone to this morning's webinar. This is the third in our series of going through the guide, taking the first steps together, a guide for creating collaborative peer-led services for parents affected by substance use. And today we're going to focus on chapter 3, which is recruiting, hiring, and training. We'd love to get started with some introductions. If folks want to introduce themselves in the chat, you can share your name, your role, where you're joining from. We'd love to get the chat going this morning. My name is Adrienne Gerard. I'm the director of the Training and Technical Assistance team for First Steps Together. And this morning, I'm going to be joined by Erica Napolitan, who's the assistant director. And this webinar series is for anyone who's looking to launch, further develop, or enhance their peer-led home visiting or clinical services for families impacted by parental substance use. Each month, we highlight a chapter of the guide, exploring concepts, offering examples from practice and tools to support both the staff working in the field and the families that they serve. And right now, we'll share a link where you can download a copy of the guide. So I wanted to talk a little bit about First Steps Together, do some quick housekeeping, and share resources, and then I'll hand it over to Erica. And so for those who don't know, First Steps Together is a home visiting program dedicated to serving and empowering families on their parenting and recovery journey. We have 6 sites across the state that serve parents and expectant parents who have been affected by substance use. We offer voluntary free services in the home, community, or virtually, delivered by a peer support specialist who's a parent in recovery or mental health counselor with specialized training. And we also offer groups and care coordination. Our services are open to any person 18 years of age or older who's used opioids, stimulants, alcohol, cannabis, or other substances in the past or present, and who is pregnant or expecting a child or has at least one child age 5 or younger. On our website, www.firststepstogetherma.org, you can find more information on our sites, including contact information. So a couple of reminders before we begin. We know that some of these topics might bring up feelings or past experiences, so please make sure to care for yourself, and if you need to take a break, please do so. The information that we share is what we have found and what we know so far. We welcome conversations about the topic and are always happy to hear others' experiences in this field. And we recognize that accepted languages and best practices are ever evolving. As presenters, we aim to create a brave space for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we expect others will be willing to engage in this way. I want to remind people that this meeting is being recorded and it will be available publicly. We'll send out a link to the recording and any resources after the webinar. We ask you to please mute when you're not speaking and feel free to unmute for question and discussion. And we'd love for folks to share in the chat throughout. Today, we're going to again cover chapter 1.3, which is recruiting, hiring, and training. We're going to have a breakout in a little bit. And I'm really excited. We have an amazing panel from staff from across sites and roles who are going to share their experiences on this topic. And at the end, we'll have some time for question and answers. So I just wanted to take a minute to review this guide, and then I'm going to hand it over to Erica to dig into chapter 3. And just to give some context to our training today, when we set off to create this resource a few years ago, we envisioned that it was going to be an implementation manual for our First Steps Together sites, which started as a pilot program, and it would support our sites running the program. But now the guide has grown to be a 300 plus page labor of love. And the final product is a resource for anybody who's interested in doing this work. It's a compilation of theory and practice, process and experiences of so many who are doing this rewarding and at times exhausting work every day. We received input from content experts across the field, and we paid special attention to the voices of those with lived expertise and those who often represent marginalized population within the recovery community. So it's divided into the 3 sections: building the foundation, serving families, and then the My Family Portfolio and Provider Guide. And the My Family Portfolio is a workbook that was created by Parents in Recovery for Parents in Recovery, and it's a collection of tools and resources for families impacted by parental substance use to use to help support both their parenting and recovery journeys. So now I'd love to hand it over to Erica to really dig into chapter 3.
Thank you, Adrienne. So as Adrienne mentioned, my name is Erica Napolitan. I am the Assistant Director of the Training and TA team for First Steps Together. But more importantly, I am a mother in long-term recovery, and I have been doing this work, either providing direct service or training for the last 14 years. So I'm really excited to be here today and sharing this topic with you. So our focus for today is going to be on chapter 3, which is recruiting, hiring, and training. For those of you that are following along, this is the cover section on building the foundation, which you can find on page 15. And we also have the cover page of chapter 1.3, recruiting, hiring, and training, which can be found on page 69. So today we will be doing a brief overview of chapter 3. This section, it is a bigger one, and it includes building a collaborative team, diversity, equity, inclusion, create a hiring team, defining project roles, considerations for determining compensation, job posting and advertising, application review, interview questions and process, pre-employment considerations, and onboarding and training. I'll be reviewing the circled sections, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from a panel of First Steps Together staff around their onboarding and training experience with the project. So each one of our chapters start with a quote, and for this chapter, the quote is, the development of this workforce is as important as the direct service work we do with families. We are constantly thinking about how to best support the peer staff, supervisors, and clinicians who work with parents in recovery. It is important to consider how we grow and support this workforce, sustain staff, and give people a chance to feel their work matters to families, to their agencies, and to the program as a whole. And this quote came from a project director. So we're starting with building a collaborative team. Really, relationships are the catalyst to change and central to the work that we do. Building successful collaborative relationships really begins with recruiting, hiring, and training new staff. A frame that really guides this model and process is that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The perinatal peer workforce is strengthened by building collaborative teams of family recovery support specialists, clinicians, and supervisors who can support one another in service delivery. It's really important that we have every part of this team. It doesn't just support the families, which our goal obviously is always to provide comprehensive support and services for families, but having a team with multiple people on it really does help support the staff. We have supervisors, we have clinicians, and most importantly, we have peers, and we always make sure that we have more than one. I truly believe that this work cannot be done alone. We need a team walking alongside us, just as families need support walking alongside them in their journeys. So this part is one of the most important. Building this collaborative team is really an integral piece to the work that we do. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. We really seek to hire staff who represent the families we serve and those who we hope to reach. For example, we know that people of color are often underrepresented in treatment and recovery services. One way we seek to address the culture and system barriers that have created this disparity is really by actively hiring and incorporating the voices of people of color in our work. We also continue to look at data in our service delivery to reflect how inequities might be identified and addressed. We also focus on creating and promoting policies and practices that uplift people and parents in recovery, support their professional development, and value their lived experience and expertise. So what does this really look like? It looks like providing continuing education opportunities, appropriate compensation, clearly communicating support for wellness and self-care within the workplace. This is really hugely important. Agency-wide commitment to using strength-based and person-centered language to actively counter the stigmatization of people in recovery. Amplify policies and practices that create equity in the hiring process. Promote a workplace culture that welcomes and elevates diverse perspectives and backgrounds. And model supervisory and project management practices that encourage accountability and continuous assessment of DEI initiatives. Excuse me. So creating a hiring team. We have a quote here from the Philadelphia Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. And it says, the more agency staff participate in the hiring process, the more invested they will be in the success of the candidate. As the hiring process evolves, staff will also increase their understanding of the role and the support that new hires will need to succeed in this position. So creating a hiring team is really vital to supporting efforts to attract and retain well-qualified staff members. Current employees who are successful in their roles really know what is needed to do the job well, and they have this valuable voice in the recruiting and hiring process. Agency leaderships, FRSSs, clinicians, and supervisors really each bring a valuable perspective to how each individual role serves the larger team. So when hiring team members have the opportunity to share these perspectives during the interview process, it really helps new candidates better understand the team approach and how we work together. Diversity is an important part of the hiring team's makeup. So this includes representation of all the different roles, as well as multiple personal characteristics such as race and ethnicity, gender expression, abilities, or other status. And some sites within our project have even considered including current or former participants in the screening and interview process. Having this team, it really gives us an opportunity to bring a lot of people to the table to think about what it really takes to do this job, and who it just makes it an easier process to have more people thinking about, like, who are we bringing to this team? What are they bringing to the table? And how can we help support any new staff in the process? So job posting and advertising. The quote from this section is, we really tried to think outside of the box when advertising these positions. Instead of just going to the usual online job boards, we thought about where those we serve are being served. Places like recovery centers and family resource centers, as well as networks like fatherhood initiatives and professional groups specifically for BIPOC. So we really want to think about targeting the right candidate when we're thinking about job posting and advertising. Qualified candidates often learn about the positions through word of mouth or their professional or personal relationships with current employees. Some of the most successful applications are when staff members share the position with their own communities and networks. It really may include sharing job postings with community partners or referral sources. Advertising on free job sharing websites also works well to really attract a wide range of applicants. So we know right now, hiring and job posting, it's been a challenge, I think, for everybody across the board. We know that places are understaffed. It's hard to find good people. So we really want to get creative and think about how we're doing this. I've heard some amazing stories from staff across our sites of, like, wild ways that they came across this job, or, how they ended up in this role. So what we wanted to do as we're thinking about this was to take some time to really go into breakout rooms and discuss some different creative ways that we've been able to recruit people. Can we advance to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we're going to discuss creative recruitment strategies and also share how you found your current role or what has worked well in your agency. Like I said, we've heard some really great stories, so I'm curious to see what you guys come up with and to brainstorm a little bit. What are some creative ways that you've been able to attract people to your team during this challenging hiring time? And we'll have an opportunity to share back when you come back from breakouts. So we're going to put you in breakout groups. for probably around 10 minutes, and we'll see you back in a little bit. Nice to see everyone. Welcome back. I think, are we all back? Yeah. Okay, great. Does anybody have any like creative or interesting ideas that they'd like to share?
I was telling my team that the agency I used to work for, because it's such a big nonprofit that and the staff turnover, as you know, in this field is always turning.
Yep.
They used to do a lot of job fairs, when the weather got nice, cookouts to kind of bring the community together. Um, Always have like a job, like a table with like any open positions and the job descriptions and things like that, especially within the community, because they always want to hire people that know the community, that are in tune with the community, and want better for the community. And so they did a lot of that through one of the resource agencies in the area, which is like the Family Resource Center. So they always connect with them and things like that. I know other things like Indeed or Facebook. Facebook is one, but mostly like just doing a lot of community events.
I love that, Stephanie. Thanks for sharing the idea of having like a community cookout and like really, because you're right. These, we want to hire people that are familiar with their community, that are part of the community, that look like the community. So having opportunities for them to come together and learn about the work and hopefully be able to recruit people is great. Anybody else? All right. Well, we can keep rolling. So in the guide, and I think we're going to pop in the chat a packet for you. In the guide, there are sample job descriptions. This one that's up on the slides right now is for the Family Recovery Support Specialist. We also have clinicians on there. And you can find that and you can use that. But we really want to think, when we're thinking about this, about creating inclusive job advertisements, emphasizing lived experience as a qualification, and really using language that promotes inclusivity and diversity. And you can find that in the packet that will be put in the chat. And feel free to use these or tweak them however you'd like. We're going to move on to the next section. So the next section that we're talking about is interview questions and process. Utilizing multiple interview formats really helps determine how an applicant will perform as an individual and how they will build successful collaborative relationships within the team. So we really do use, and we're going to move on to the next one before I start talking about it. We really do use like multiple formats and how we think about interviewing process. And this is great to use whether you're doing this type of work or any kind of work, but as a member of First Steps Together, really the ability to work as a team collaborator is as important to the success as the ability to work well with families. We've really put a lot of emphasis on our team and the support that we provide each other as well as families. So this is a big piece of the puzzle. So using different interview formats allows us to accurately assess an applicant's abilities. These may include brief one-on-one screening or brief screening, a one-on-one meeting, a group interview, And different approaches will really accommodate candidates with diverse backgrounds and learning styles, and it allows a wider range of candidates to accurately showcase their strengths through the interview process. We can do different formats like telephone interviews, video conferencing, in-person meetings. And this just really, it helps the process along, trying different formats and different styles. I know like the interview process for myself, it's like, makes you nervous. I don't always feel like I'm, getting my skills across clearly because I'm anxious. So giving the opportunity for candidates to go through multiple different formats, and making it an actual process, gives people an opportunity to really showcase who they are and what they're bringing to the table. So this might look like an interview process may be structured with an initial screening call followed by a one-on-one interview with a supervisor. And then the second interview may be with the project director, the site clinician, and our third interview may be with a group of FRSSs. And this really helps us figure out, like I mentioned, those skills, and having different interviews and with different roles and different orders helps us kind of pick up on the skills and attributes or abilities, or even concerns about a candidate that might otherwise be missed. And so with the interview process, we want to use interview questions and processes, stumbling on my words. Some of the things that we can do during the interview process is to provide a brief participant scenario. And, this could be giving an example of, an interaction with a participant and what that looks like, and seeing how the candidate would respond, or asking candidates structured questions can really provide us more information about how the person will respond in real life situations. Other core skills that should be assessed during interview process are skills necessary for documentation and record keeping. One of the things you can do to get to this would be to ask for a writing sample. I know that we've done that in some of our interviews. And although many candidates will understand that peer support comes with this component of doing the work, they might not realize that there's this other side of it. It's not just meeting with people. There's documentations that need to happen. There's referrals that need to be made. There's collaborative relationships that need to be built with collaterals. So through this process of interviewing, we can really assess where people are, their comfort with it, and decide whether or not they're a good fit for the team. Thinking about like interviews and asking targeted questions, we are going to share with you in that packet and the interview question tool. But I just remember, for me, going back to like my original interview, when I first started doing this direct service work, I had quite a challenging go with the Department of Children and Families in my past, in my struggle days, in my early recovery. And one of the questions that stood out the most when I was having my interview was, how do you feel about working with the Department of Children and Families? And up until that moment, I hadn't really thought about it. And I had to kind of pause and think about, how do I feel about that? How do I feel about partnering with them? So these are kind of things that we want to ask people. How do you practice self-care? What is your parenting experience? And what is your view of parenting and recovery? Kind of being able to get an idea of where people stand, how they feel about it. For us, we're a home visiting program. So thinking about like, what is your comfort with going in people's homes? That kind of thing really helps us get a good feel for the person that we're working with and how they're going to fit into our team. So this brings us to onboarding and training. It really takes time and training for staff to develop the competencies they need to perform their multifaceted support and care coordination roles within First Steps Together. Taking the time to onboard staff benefits not only the families we serve, but the agency as well. So sufficient onboarding, it really helps get staff up to speed more quickly. It reduces stress and decreases turnover, which can be stressful for both colleagues, the team, as well as the families, and it can be a significant expense for agencies. So we want to think about that when we're providing onboarding and how this will help retain staff. And it also really helps to develop specific job knowledge. Initial onboarding for this type of work, it may take as many as 3 or 4 weeks, or depending on how much background knowledge and experience new staff bring, it could be even longer. Additionally, once the official onboarding period is complete, it'll likely be several months before staff fully understand and are comfortable doing this on their own. So we're going to go through and look a little bit at what does onboarding and training look like. So there's agency onboarding. So this may include, anything that your agency has, like HR policies or HIPAA and all those things. We do First Steps Together. We have a project orientation. We do training and onboarding on data collection and documentation. We have a whole bunch of webinars and other required trainings to do beforehand. We have frequent meetings with the supervisor to discuss learning, observations, and questions. And one of the most important things we do is shadowing staff in a variety of roles and responsibilities, such as intake, home visits. We're thinking about visit planning, documentation, groups, how to meet people's concrete needs, connecting with collaterals. We really put a lot of emphasis on the shadowing process at First Steps Together, and making sure that people see all the different things that we do and the different styles that different employees have. So it really gives the new hire an idea of what is going on and how they might be able to do this work on their own. Some other things that we need to think about during the onboarding and training process are becoming familiar with local resources and collaterals, and this could be child center resources, the pediatricians, early intervention providers in your area, recovery-centered resources, recovery centers, family resource centers, support groups, medication-assisted treatment in your area, behavioral options, resources for meeting concrete needs. Where are the diaper banks? Where are the food pantries? Getting the new staff connected with local perinatal collaboratives, getting familiar with child welfare in your area, who are the offices, who is working there, and really other frequent collaborators and local resources. And this could be a wide range of things that it takes to support a family. But this is a big part of the onboarding, and we can be used in the interview process as well, as like asking people about the resources in their community. What resources are they aware of and what do they use? Because it's a big part of supporting families. So First Steps Together, we use competency-based training plans, and competency-based training plans can be used to prepare for onboarding activities and other recommended trainings throughout the staff member's first year of employment. These plans really represent the foundational skills, the concepts and content needed to effectively provide comprehensive recovery, parenting, and care coordination services. Some of the content areas represent discrete training topics. Others are more foundational concepts that might be embedded in larger trainings. But we, within the guide, we have a suggested time frame for when these content and concept areas would be introduced. But we really want to make sure that we know that it can be revisited over time. Lots of the training topics that we include are things that need to keep going back to and be a regular part of conversation during team meetings and supervision. Ongoing professional development after the initial training is really just such an essential component to doing this work. Professional development needs and expectations should really be clearly outlined in the beginning by agencies and discussed regularly as part of staff supervision and as part of program expectations. So things to consider when we're talking about competency-based plans. What's great about this is and I'll review a couple of, in that packet, we have the sample of the competency-based training plan that we use. But the things we want to consider is, what knowledge and skills does this person already bring to their role? Some people come to us and they've never done home visiting or support work at all. And that's okay. We can start from there. But other people come with more experience. maybe they've been in the clinical field or they're a recovery coach already, and we might not necessarily need them to go through as much training, but we still want to make sure that they have what they need to serve families appropriately. So we want to think about having, you know, the supervisor and staff member review and complete the training plan together, really determining what knowledge and skills does this person already bring to the role? Do they have previous education, training, or experience that already includes some of the topics that we're looking to cover? If they do, you know, is it important for them to further develop their knowledge in this for this specific population, or is what they already have okay? What trainings and opportunities are most important to prioritize? How often is it helpful for this person to have an opportunity to review what they're learning and to ask questions? And this is really a part of like meeting people where they're at, making sure we understand people's learning styles, revisiting and giving opportunity and supervision and in team meetings to like ask questions about what they're learning. How will supervisors structure the staff members' first few weeks to maintain a balance between learning and doing? It's never great to just sit in front of a computer and like watch trainings. That's why we talk about shadowing and getting people out there and doing things. And really, how can supervisors encourage and plan for staff to really set aside time to take in information and opportunity to process and practice what they've learned? So some of the things that we do have on our competency-based training plan that you can find in your packet, and I don't have a slide for it, but I'm just going to talk it through a little bit. We have languages advocacy, which if you've been following along in this series, we've talked a bit about that. Thinking about professional practices and boundaries, using your lived experience, multiple paths to recovery, home visiting safety, implementing home visiting, Recovery Coach Academy is a big one, intimate partner violence, overdose prevention and Narcan training, collaborating with child welfare services, strengthening families framework, understanding child development, which is really crucial when we're working with families, motivational interviewing, secondary trauma, compassion fatigue, and preventing burnout. We use mothering from the inside out at First Steps Together. Reflective supervision is something that our supervisors use. If you're running groups in our program, you'll do GPS, a group peer support. We also have people do trainings on birth planning and supporting the postpartum period, preparing and caring for newborns exposed to substances, thinking about removal and reunification, and tobacco cessation. There's lots of things that we have on our list that are helpful for people to learn about when they are joining this team, the teams for our sites and providing services for families. So before we move on, is there any questions? All right. So I'm really excited. We're going to have a bit of a panel discussion. We'll do some introductions and we're going to share some examples from practice with you. And then after we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. And I am so excited to introduce our panel to you. We have Josh Kephart, who is an FRSS at Making Opportunities Count, or MOC, in Leominster, and he has been working in the recovery field for over 4 years. He is an avid Boston sports fan and says he bleeds green for the Celtics. He is dedicated to supporting parents in recovery, and he is grateful that his profession allows him to combine the two things he is most passionate about: living his life in recovery and being a proud dad to his 2 boys. We have Billy Starks, who has been in the social work field for over 15 years and has experience in supporting individuals with substance use disorder in hospitals, outpatient clinics, and in community-based settings. Billy is a very strong advocate for deconstructing stigma associated with substance use disorder as a means of counteracting disparities in accessing life-saving care and support across systems. She is thrilled to incorporate her passions in her role as a community social worker with First Steps Together on Cape Cod, while she has also been growing into her role as a parent to a lively 3-year-old boy. Meredith Hallisey is the program coordinator at Bay State Community Services in New Bedford. with the First Steps Together program. Meredith has been working in the field for over 6 years and received her certificate in recovery coaching in 2022. Meredith enjoys working with families as they find their path to parenting and recovery. And when not at work, Meredith spends her time gardening and tending to her chickens. Shalonda Mabry is a native of Springfield, Mass, and is the First Steps Together coordinator at Square One, where she oversees home-based family support program that encourages individuals who are parenting while in recovery. Shalonda has been working to support parents and families in her community since before she could drive and has been at Square One for over 10 years. She helped start the First Steps Together program, served as the first clinician in the program, and helped build the Mothering from the Inside Out model statewide. Shalonda is the proud parent of 2 crazy fun athletic boys. So I am so excited to welcome the 4 of you here today. And we're gonna ask you a few questions about the onboarding and training process that you've been through. And I'm so excited to hear a bit about how it has been to be on this project and be trained. So Josh, I'm gonna start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with training at and onboarding at First Steps Together?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So when I was hired from First Steps, I was currently working in a local halfway house, and I've been there for 3 years. So I felt like I had a pretty good idea on working with people in recovery, you know. Uh, but when I got to the First Steps Together at that time in Fitchburg, I had a really, really supportive team around me. I had veteran FRSSs that were there for me, a really amazing supervisor that was there that helped make me comfortable with more than anything, like the trauma informed like language that we use, and really getting comfortable with the multiple pathways to recovery because uh, I had a real cookie cutter way in recovery for me. Like I felt like my way was the way that everybody got sober and got themselves into recovery. And I quickly found out that that wasn't the case. And it was really because I had a super great team around me. And I had what I believe is the best part of being an FRSS, which is the Recovery Coach Academy and all the trainings that come along with that. Um, really dove deep into that trauma informed language and understanding that there is multiple ways to be in recovery, and you are in recovery when you say you're in recovery. And it really took a little bit of time for me to wrap my head around all of that stuff, but because of the team that I have around me, the TA team, it really helped me learn a lot faster.
Hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, you really had the support that you needed to kind of change the way that you had thought about recovery when you first got to start doing this job. Um, can you tell me a little bit about like being the voice for those that don't always have one? I know that's something that you're really passionate about.
Uh, um, yeah, so I am a parent in recovery, right? I know how to be a dad and I know how to be in recovery. And sometimes our participants don't know either one of those things. Um, and for me, being able to like be consistent first for our participants and showing up for them, and being able to advocate for them when it comes to providers meetings with DCF and uh, court and different things like that, like having them see that they have somebody that cares for them and will constantly show up for them, I really think makes a huge difference in the participant themselves. Like when they see some consistency, because a lot of our people, they don't know what it's like to have somebody that cares about them, and then they finally do. And that makes a world of a difference for them in their recovery journey and in their parenting journey. And being able to be just a small piece for that person and for that child too is super rewarding for me personally.
Mm. Yeah. What do you think has been like the most valuable piece? I know you mentioned Recovery Coach Academy, but what has really been the most valuable piece of training and being able to be a part of this project?
The most valuable piece for me, it kind of said it in the bio thing that you guys read. Like being a parent and being in recovery are the two things that I'm most passionate about in my life. So I don't really look at this as like a job, like I look at this as an opportunity to be there for other people. And, like that's super important. I have a huge team around me that all of us are in recovery. All of us are parents, like there's so much support that comes. And to me, that makes a world of a difference. So I'm just grateful to be a part of this team and, blessed to have the opportunity to help people.
Love it. Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you had to share. So Billy, I'm going to go over to you. And can you tell me a little about what has been different about your training experience with First Steps Together compared to other programs or positions that you've held?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. Good morning, everybody. Coming to you from South Yarmouth today on the Cape. Yeah, so training with First Steps Together has been an entirely different experience for me than other places. Has anybody else had the opportunity of showing up for their first day of work and they're just like shown where their workstation is and it's like, good luck, see you later? So I've had those experiences, and that is one way to learn, right? Like you really got to figure out what you don't know and make a whole bunch of mistakes. And like, I guess there's a method to that madness, but um at Cape Cod Children's Place, the training and onboarding, experience is much more intentional, thought out, organized, and structured. So it does span for about 6 months. And that's essentially to say that there's no team member that's going to join our team and be expected to go out and do this work on their own until after they surpassed about 6 months of training. And it's really very individualized. So we're lucky to have the organizational support and understanding that the intention and development of team members takes that long. And that we just really have an understanding of the complexity of what it is that we're doing with families. And we want to invest the time and energy to dive deeply into the complexity so that when we go out into doing the work, we feel like we are equipped. And I think one important piece that we really want to remember, because often we're doing a parallel process with organizationally to staff members to participants, right? Is that we're really integrating and weaving the threads throughout the safety net that we're creating. So we want to recognize that, there's an unfair burden of stigma and marginalization for those who have lived experience with substance use disorder. And our workforce is so valuable because they've had to walk that journey. And so therefore, we really want to individualize training and onboarding experiences to accommodate how people learn the best. So that might be finding audio content, video content, doing, just really working with people to find how do you integrate and synthesize information the best, so that we can really help you dig into this stuff. And certainly it feels a little daunting at times, a little lengthy, right? Like, okay, I'm ready. Put me in, coach. But I think what's so nice about it is that it feels paced, unrushed, really committed, because we want to also sustain ourselves in the work that we're doing. And so having the luxury of that time and training feels like a real investment in you as an individual as well. That's how it's felt for me.
Hmm. And what has been the most valuable piece of training and onboarding?
Well, I guess it's hard to pick one thing. But I do think that the structured components of our training are really, really useful. Because I think it assures that we will cover core content areas that are just kind of non-negotiables. And I think that, what we've done at Cape Cod Children's Place is develop an onboarding and training checklist so that we can really intentionally map out training activities and then engage trainees in written reflections of those activities to help them really work with the experience. And then really go back and say, do you feel like you're competent in this area? Do you feel like you have enough to work with here? Right. And we're not going for perfect, but we're just going for like, did we thoroughly cover this area enough so that you, the trainee, can kind of lean into that learning curve on your own from here on out? So I think the onboarding checklist is really helpful, and also monthly training themes. So we incorporate training into our staff meetings throughout the year. We have our training themes mapped out and we revisit them annually. And we're always updating and modifying them as well with team input so that, you know, because we're all like lifelong learners, as exhausting as that might be, we just are. And so we get to really work together to refine and hone in on things because the landscape is always changing too, right? Like
Yeah.
the issues that our families are navigating are always changing. And so, you know, we have, like, we're just wrapping up our spring into engagement month, where we talk about like, okay, how are we engaging our participants? How are we engaging community partners? What does that look like? We're tired, I'll tell you that. We're ready to, we're ready for a break from all the engagement. But it's good, you know, it helps to remind us and reorient us, like where are our North Stars, where are we going? And how do we need to orient ourselves right now? So at the risk of being too long-winded, Erica, wrap up that one.
Okay. And really, how has this level of training impacted, you know, both the families you serve and the personal life, and experience of you and staff?
Yeah, well, so when I was thinking about this question, I was just thinking about how sad it is that we can't quantify the impact, like the ways that our training and investment in ourselves as staff members and by extension our families, like can you all just take a moment to imagine, you know, how you've been impacted by your training and then how that extends to the families and how maybe that even extends out into the communities, and you're imagining the ripple effects and that they just kind of keep carrying on. So that to me is so incredibly powerful. And you know, I think about how you know, it feels to me like what I've done is update the prescription that I'm seeing the world through, right? Like I'm sharpening the lenses, incorporating the perspectives that we're really trying to dig into on the project to understand families' experiences, navigating systems, correcting for disparities, and trying to do this incredibly meaningful work of interrupting cycles and protecting families. So, you know, I think the just imagining the ripple effects helps to buoy us and helps to really help us to commit to the intensity of the training. And like for me, personally, going through training for mothering from the inside out and circle of security has helped me to reparent myself. I'll just be honest. I'm being real
Yeah.
transparent. Okay.
Mhm.
I've gotten so much out of this, right? Like I've been able to do my own healing, orient to my own personal North Stars. It helps me regulate, right? Like if I myself feel like I can be a more better equipped, more regulated parent for my son, I can bring those experiential learning things into the work that I'm doing with families and help encourage their process wherever they are. And I just feel better equipped to really see the issues as they're playing out in front of me so that I can speak truth to them in the most palatable way possible, right? Like I'm a fierce advocate and but I want to be able to really help families recognize what's happening in their experience, recognize if they are being stigmatized, if they are being marginalized, and then say there's something we can do about this that's productive. And so let's lean into that. So I think, yeah, I think that's what comes to
Yeah.
mind.
That's great, really. And so to take it home with, what lessons have you learned?
Oh, geez, so many. And again, hard to put into words and hard to quantify. Like I literally feel like my DNA has been changed by being a part of this project. Again, for just how it's impacted me as a human being, and then hopefully also impacted my team and the community that we're serving. But I think one lesson that stands out the most is just the reciprocal relationships of being lifelong learners and how we're all learning together all the time, and how important that is and how powerful it is, right? Like we really can truly level the playing field and respect each individual as they're coming to this project with all of their experience as a human being. And there's something to be gleaned from that. And I think there's a sharing of like, okay, I have some understanding and expertise, but I also want to make space for how you understand that and how you understand my way of supporting you and vice versa. So whether it's in training, it's like you're observing me, you're reflecting on how I'm using myself in a home visit, and then we're gonna flip it around, and you're gonna have a chance to lead the charge in a home visit, and I'm going to reflect on that. And then we're going to invite the participant, like, how was that for you? How could we have done something differently? Especially if, like, say we're meeting with DCF, right? Those experiences can feel really charged. So the learning is what helps to process all of that, I think. So yeah, it's been really wonderful. So I'll leave it there, I guess.
Thank you so much, Billy. I love that, like thinking about, that ripple effect that it has and really creating space for all of us to learn from each other is just, it's really where it's at. Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
great. Meredith, happy to have you with us this morning. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience of onboarding and training at your site?
So good morning, everybody. Wow. I just want to listen to Billy. I don't even want to speak. But for my experience, it's been unique in that I've had the experience of being trained as an FRSS and also as a peer supervisor. And I don't know that's very unique. I hope it's not unique as our program continues. I hope, we all have this growth coming. But I think one of the things that has been most valuable as an FRSS for myself was, that permission to just be myself, just to be my authentic self, whether there were things that were going to need to be learned or there were things of value that I was bringing to it. Like that was one of the most valuable things. As a supervisor, I actually reached out to my team because I wanted to know what they found valuable. I know from my own experience what I find valuable, but I wanted to broaden that a little bit. And what I was told was training. That training is valuable. Training in the specific areas of where we help our families. I know for myself that training that was most impactful was touch points. I found that was the training I used the most with my families, and that they found helpful. I always tell, coaches and stuff that when I was able to tell this mom who was pulling her hair out that this was a touch point and this child was gonna, grow into her milestone, it was amazing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, it does definitely. What are some lessons that you've learned along the way of, kind of even transitioning from that of experiencing training and onboarding as FRSS and now as a supervisor? What lessons have you learned through that process?
I'm definitely, you can plan a plan, but you can't plan an outcome. Sometimes things, happen and you have to learn to adjust. I think one of the things we've learned along the way is just the value of the relationship. Like you mentioned so much of it as you were speaking this morning, that relationship and the connection and the bolstering. Like I have learned sometimes the hard way, I am not alone, and so having a team you can bounce things off of, having a supervisor, I myself came into this work not really understanding that supervisors were supports and not always punitive. So I think that has been a great contributor to my growth, and I hope that's what I bring to the table. Reflective supervision has been a training that I have truly enjoyed and want to continue because it's helped me so much, I think, in the growth and sitting with coaches, and really seeing their feelings and the difficulties they're facing and really being able to sit with them in that space.
That's great, Meredith. And kind of lastly, how has this level of training impacted not only the families we serve, but the staff personally?
Well, I'm a much better grandmother than I was a mom. I can tell you that. And sometimes my sons are like, where was this woman? But I echo that from another coach who was also said, her adult child had a much different mother than her child who was in elementary school. I think of what Billy was saying. It really has, the trainings have a way of touching you, and you're able to see things in your own life and heal in your own life, and then bring that healing and that knowledge to the families and the ripple effect. I couldn't have said it better. It really is a ripple effect of who we walk in, what we learn in the training, and then what we're able to go out into the world with.
Thank you, Meredith. I appreciate that. And like both you and Billy kind of naming that this whole doing this work and the training and the onboarding and the support, it's not only just a transformative process for the families that we're serving, but it transforms us. I know for myself over the years of doing this work, I'm a completely different person than when I started, and I'm constantly that growing and evolving that we're always doing. It's not just for the benefit of families, it benefits us too. And it's almost the bonus of this, right? It's that, we're being held and supported while we do this work so that we can hold and support parents. And the hope being that they can hold and support their children in a more meaningful way is really, it's the gift of doing this work, right? It's absolutely amazing. So I appreciate that both you and Billy were able to name that. Thank you so much. All right, I'm gonna move over to Shalonda at Square One. So can you tell me a little bit about the onboarding and training process at Square One?
All right. So, should I do it individually or as a team, like how our team comes up?
Where do you want to go? You want to talk about as a team? Let's go for it. We'll do both.
For First Steps Together, where this program was like, on a standstill, we came out with no flyers and we made it happen. So for my onboarding was much different from the other because I came on for the MIO pilot for the program. So I had a sense of what the program was going to be about, but I was only specialized in doing MIO since it was like a pilot for the whole First Steps Together, see how this worked. And then I transitioned to the coordinator, which is a whole different story. So I thank you for my team, my peers, because there's other site directors and coordinators and program supervisors I had called to lean on. But here at Square One, we do a agency overview of a regular interview. And then we have, I like to do a second interview with my staff. I think it's very important for the team to be into the interview process as well. So they can get a perspective of who's going to be joining our team, potentially join our team. And that way too, for the interviewee to get asked the questions they don't want to ask me during their interview process. I think that plays a big part of onboarding here. We are like a little family and we need to mesh. And I think with onboarding, I know you shared in chapter 3 about the scenarios and questions and the diversity piece. I can say in our area too, I think plays a big part of our onboarding process. We cover a great range of families of all cultures and backgrounds. And I think it's like so important to have that within our own team, along with the pathway work too. Understand, like how Josh said, there's like more than just like these 2 pathways, these 12 steps, and understanding that journey. So I think during the onboarding, asking those tough, hard questions to get a sense of who they are and where they want to go on their journey helps the potential of that candidate.
Thank you, Shalana. So for someone that was, just starting out doing this type of work, whether it be an agency or, someone that was just starting this journey, what's like one thing that they should know?
You gotta come here with like a strength-based mentality because in the interview process, I don't know if everybody knows that picture with the dad walking in, the mom in the kitchen. Some may know it, some may not know it. And I think that's like a key of we never know what we're gonna walk into and how you're really gonna handle that and being sensitive to those needs. Saying what you need to say, but making it be meaningful with respect. Like I see you have some fruit. Can we help you fix that basket? Like the little things, like, and not saying that gotta be a scenario, but like just giving that like aspect of like, you gotta have some kind of like strength-based approach when interacting with people, because we never know what we're gonna walk into. So I think that's a sense of peace. I think that comes with too the interview process of making them feel at home. So when you're talking to them, it's like, I'm not here to God, I'm not here to, you're coming to my space. How can I make you feel welcome? Even though this question may be hard, it's okay to cry. It's okay to share your story. You ain't got to share it all because I don't need to know it all because that doesn't define who you are. But just share a little bit and be open to that aspect of life. Does that make sense? Make sense?
It does,
Okay.
yeah, really coming with that strength-based approach in all we do. Can you talk to me a little bit about shadowing and how that works at your site?
Yes. So we usually do a lot of shadow initial visits, like going out for a couple initial visits to ensure that people are getting what they want, especially if a new staff is joining the team, to at least go out and do a couple of visits to ensure that they're comfortable and sharing too. Like I think it's bittersweet because you may be nervous, but they're just assisting. So somebody talks about like food insecurity. I can hear it. They might not be able to hear it that time because they're so focused on doing paperwork. It's like piggybacking on it. Oh, didn't know they shared about this. They didn't have. So next time, bring local pantry so they can know that you heard them and not embarrassed. And I think just an aspect of shadowing is a sense of encouraging, motivating, and letting them know that they are doing a good job, whether they may be struggling in some different areas. And shadowing can go too for stressful situations. Because we all, like I said, we walk into different things. You might walk into somebody's home and you're going to do a visit, and DCF may be there to remove the children. How would that look? Encouraging that. We have culturally, I will share my story about the young lady family cutting the goat when I walked in the house. What did that look like? Being open-minded, like they got to have somebody with me, but it was a point of like, okay, how do I get myself together so I will not be embarrassing them as a family and respect them as their culture, but having that support, additional support from other peers, like, we got this. Oh, those flies are flying around. We're gonna open the doors. We're gonna piggyback off each other, but like, to make sure that nobody is feeling uncomfortable, just a sense of security, knowing that this work is hard and that you are gonna be supported no matter what.
And how do you feel that the training has impacted, again, just not only families, but you personally?
Yes, because like I said, when I started up at First Steps Together, there was no kind of like training, no format, no nothing. And it was like you make your own stuff up and you go with the flow. So I am so grateful and excited that this toolkit has got up and running to give us like a foundation of, I think it's important for consistency within all our sites. Because if I have a staff here that has a question or a problem, I know they can call Meredith, Josh, Billy, or whoever on the team, because we're all kind of doing the same thing. And when I think that makes it so much better. I came from a background with parents as teachers and healthy families. So when I did their trainings, everything was set in stone and all these different modules. So it was already set in stone. So I think coming on now, seeing it as like I'm so excited for this toolkit and that especially too with KPP. We didn't have KPP when I started this program too. And that's encouragement and reassurance as a program coordinator. If you can't touch upon something, you know it's going to be touched upon and or there's somewhere else with Erica or any other team members. I do think having all the supports as the TA teams, like a little happy hour, your little Zoom happy hour, I think that's a plus due to those because things happen. People's lives get busy and somebody may be with another peer or FRS may be busy with somebody else, that to have the opportunity to have that support and the tools to help navigate. And then anything too, you can open your toolkit and be like, how do you do that page again? So it's like a sense of like that security, like if I can't find it, we're gonna make it happen because I have these tools now that are gonna be implemented within this program to best support all our families across the board, which I'm so across the board over all the sites, because it was what you got for relapse prevention plan, what you got for the DV part, like that was just too much. So now having a little bit of consistency, seeing us all do the same work as a whole team makes my heart happy.
Thank you, Shalonda. And I love just in that you kind of spoke to the collaborative nature of this. It wasn't just about our individual teams, our serving the way we serve families, that we collaborated from the ground zero and worked together to design this 300 and something page book together that helps us best serve families and support staff. And it was all done with your help, everyone on this call today. So it was really amazing that we have these tools. So thank you all for contributing. I'm going to open it now. Is there any questions from anybody in the audience?
I was really curious, Billy, I think you were talking about how you like go to a visit with FRSF together, and that you kind of both talk about what you're going to do, and then kind of watch each other in the room, and then invite the participant in to kind of talk about how that's been. And I'm just curious, like, what kind of like framework do you use to do that, or like, how do you talk about it before you go in?
Yeah, that's a great question, Felice. I think basically what we try to do is have a clear agenda prior to going to the home. And so, we're working with families who are on all kinds of continuums, they're in all different places. So it's sort of like, okay, obviously we want to leave space for the organic happenings, like things just like kind of like what Shalonda was saying, like you can have your plan all day long. You also have to be ready to be on your toes a little bit. So we talk about like what are some key objectives that we want to try to accomplish. And like, for example, just for the sake of illustrating it, like we're going on a home visit so that mom can meet her new DCF worker. So she's had a previous one, but now she has a new one. And so really, what do we want to try to do? And if possible, we want to also talk with mom about that in advance. Like, this is the role that we're going to play, and you get to negotiate that with us a little bit. So that would be like the ideal case scenario where you have the luxury of like pre-planning. And then throughout the visit, kind of like what Shalonda was saying, you're playing off of each other, you're kind of piggybacking a little bit, but trying to delineate at the start, like I'm gonna take the lead, but you're very welcome to jump in. And then vice versa, right? So if it's like a newer FRSS who's training, you want to kind of lead by example at first and have them reflect on what they observed. I always love like criticism or constructive criticism, or like maybe I wouldn't have said it this way or whatever, right? Because like I want to be learning all the time, and I'm totally open to observations. And then as the trainee moves along in their process, then they're taking the lead a little bit more and say, I'm there with them. I'm just providing a supportive role to like fill in some gaps. And then yeah, giving the participant the opportunity to reflect. How was that? Like a lot of voices in the room, a lot of opinions. How was that for you? Do you want us to be more proactive? Do you want us to like chill out and sit back a little bit more? Just again, to invite like all of the ways that we can really think together about how are we doing this and how do we want to be intentional. And each participant is so different in what they're looking for from us. And like there's a recent example of a mom who was very comfortable speaking up for herself, and you know what, the way she said things, I couldn't have said it better, right? So giving them the opportunity to really know that they can guide the process felt really important. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. It is about 10:52, so I think we will get going. Thank you to Josh and Billy and Meredith and Shalonda for contributing and giving your experience of hiring, onboarding, and training in this in our First Steps Together project. I really appreciate it. You all are amazing. And we'll bring these slides back up. Hopefully, yes. So this brings us to key takeaways. Each chapter has this, and in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all of these, but really it's, think a thoughtful process, capturing strengths, and really that specialized training and support that everyone spoke about that really brings the magic to this project. And our next webinar is on April 23rd, and it's Building the Foundation, Chapter 1.4, and it's on supervision. This work is too important to do alone. How you are is as important as what you do. It is not possible to work on behalf of human beings to try to help them without having powerful feelings aroused in oneself. So we're really going to talk about how we provide different kinds of supervision and support for staff in our project. And I'm super excited for the next webinar so we can talk about some reflective supervision like Meredith mentioned. It's going to be great. We'll be sending out a flyer soon. We have, go on to the next slide, please. Opportunities for ongoing support. We have our website where you can get information there. We also have office hours every Friday from 9 to 10. The TA team is available for questions around the guide or the family portfolio. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can email me, and my email address is here on the slide. And before you go, just want to thank you all for joining. We're going to put a survey in the chat. If you could please fill that out before you leave, that would be great. And if there's any other questions or comments, please let me know. I'm going to change my views so I can see people because I am, oh, there we go. Any other questions and comments? I'll be happy to answer. And it was so good to have time with all of you today. Thank you so much.